Wanted to see specifically, it's really powerful, those two AK lines that you drop into and they rip out from underneath. Like, can you walk us through the one that was really rowdy?
Yeah, so that's Birthday Bowl up in Haines, and Nicholas Mueller and I share the same birthday, which is a fun fact. And so Birthday Bowl was like a special place just because it was like, I don't know, he named it on his birthday one year. And so we get there and the conditions are like, the snow is incredible, but there was this really weak instability about 30 cms down. And we knew about it. Those guys dropped in first on the further looker's left side, and it ripped immediately. And I was actually there like at the top. And I was like, there's no way that I could drop into that steep of terrain and actually navigate away from the avalanche. And so I looked back over at this bigger flank, and even though it was big, I had actually previously rode it. And so I had the confidence of knowing what it felt like already. And in full transparency, Nicholas basically walked me through how to navigate an avalanche. And so before I dropped in, we talked about my safe points. We talked about where my exit would be. We talked about like the no-go zone, like where the exposure was, and that they were at the top. If anything happened, they would be able to come down to help. A lot of that was like risk factor, like I'm sitting there like willing to drop in, even though I just watched the other terrain slide. And sure enough, like 4 turns in, I flash back to Travis Rice talking about the Wolverine claws in Art of Flight, where he's like, I'm going to dig those Wolverine claws into the mountain. Like, that's what I did. And it was like another thing, like I'm taking this tool that I had watched in a movie handful of years prior, and now I'm like using what I heard him say as like his life-saving device, because I was on my heel edge in the snow. I saw the whole mountain breaking away, and I was like, okay, like if you go over this little roller, you're going into steep terrain, there's exposure, it's going to be a lot harder to come out safe. Like you need to stop before you get to that point, because you know that that's your safe point. And so sure enough, like by the grace of the universe, I was able to stop myself in that position, and I got down to the bottom and I just tapped myself out. I was like, I felt very lucky that I was able to experience it that way. And it was almost like a drill. I felt like I was living the verbal communication of what Nicholas and I just did. It was like practicing your beacon drills and then having the avalanche happen. And it made me also realize how important it was to say no and being okay to say no, because I could have just said, I'm not going to drop in, you guys. Like, I don't feel safe and I can let those blades spin and I'm just going to be comfortable. But I think that comes with age and confidence and a crew that you feel comfortable with using your voice. And so lesson learned, and I really backed off a lot of terrain for that whole next few days because it just didn't feel right. And I think that was a very good inner dialogue that I had to work through. And unfortunately, I was in an avalanche, and fortunately, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And yet, yeah.
I think it's amazing that you remained on the trip and in those mountains after that. I think that's just facing the environment, I guess, after something like that happens is very, very challenging.
Yeah. And there's something, for me personally, like Alaska has this incredible draw for me. And I want to say I'm not done with it yet, but natural selection really showed me this side of my heart where I was like, it's cool. Like, you can be here now. Like, I would love to go back to Alaska with no cameras and just shred the crap out of it and have like a really fun crew where it's just not documented. And you just like embrace those mountains for all that they are, because there is so much terrain there. It's so empowering, it's scary, and it's so progressive. And I feel like that's like where my heart, that's the only step left in snowboarding that like I just still have this, like, it's on a pedestal.